every penny of it.
No problem.
Helen, do you have another one of these? I think some of them are taking that as that's. Well, they're selling that property.
Well, they have a contract.
No, they were apparently she kind of implied that Six Stones was trying to buy. Something I kind of want to step back and just stove top is not as long. And so my pink get caught up. But I love the boots. They feel right. They fit good.
Yes, I did. I don't think they're up yet. I will be.
And if you
will be
downtown Control and do that.
So this thing's laid out in this order, right?
Yes, sir. We have your recaps at the beginning. So
I went over it. Now I'm going to go to action.
and that's the year that Whitley wanted added. Gives a percentage increase year over year.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner.
We used to start at 10 o'clock, but now we start at 10.
You ready? Yes. You ready? Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Lloyd Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2. Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Honor Members of the Court. Well, it's that time of year again, and this year is a little bit different than in the years past. Just a few comments before we get going. We're going to go ahead and do the same routine that we've done in the past. I'll give a general overview of the economy. Then we'll ask Ms. Tidwell to come forward and do the revenue projections, and then Ms. Geese or whoever from her department who may be making that presentation today. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit is that this process is a little bit different than what we've had in the past because of some of the things that the legislature has enacted over the last session. Senate Bill 2 was a significant piece of legislation, and so there's been a lot of work that's been done in the at the staff level with budget, with tax, with the auditor's office, our office, the DA's office, all trying to understand just exactly all the issues and processes that we have had to go through with Senate Bill 2. You might have also seen an article in the Star-Telegram this morning as it dealt with a card that everyone got as a taxpayer, and that was a requirement of Senate Bill also. So it took us a little bit longer to do various things, but I will say that everyone at those departments that I just mentioned, they did an outstanding job to get us where we are today. And also like to say that this is the first year that the budget director is actually the permanent budget director. Helen went through this thing last year as acting, and it was showtime for her, and she's done an excellent job also. We did send out the budget letter last week, and it encapsulated all the different changes that we're going to talk about today. The budget itself is a very good budget, I believe, and I think one of the important things, and I think Renee will point this out, that the tax rate that we're going to recommend, which is the current tax rate, is below the no new revenue rate of the state. And so that's fairly impressive because of all the economic issues that we've seen in the past. So if we
let's be sure and emphasize that. So what we're doing, the rate right now that is basically proposed is the current rate. It is a rate that will raise no additional revenue.
It will raise less revenue.
Less revenue, and it is below the certainly below the 3.5%, which the legislature put as a cap on cities and counties last year. Even though with the state of the disaster, that 3.5% cap doesn't apply. We would be rolled back to the 8% cap, but it doesn't make any difference. We're below both of those numbers.
That's correct, Your Honor. That's correct. And I know that we'll continue to emphasize that because I think it's important, because we've seen some things as we go through our section. The values were not as significant as we've seen in the past. New construction was fairly good. But we hope that it is not a forecast of things to come in the future years, but we take every year 1 year at a time. So we're going to go ahead and go through a slide presentation now and talk a little bit about the revenue piece. So with that, we're going to move to the estimated net taxable value. You know, we have seen over the last 10 years, we have seen our values increase substantially. This year was the same. We saw an increase in revenue. However, it was something that was not quite as large as we've seen in the past. One thing that we do is you have to have a certain point that you actually count a number. And as in past years, the July appraisal document is one that we're required to set the tax rate on. We saw about a 2.67% increase this year over last year. Previous years we had seen a little bit more, but there's some other requirements that occurred in Senate Bill 2 that affected how the appraisal district went about appraising values, and that basically kept that value somewhat lower. When we go then to mineral leases, this is an interesting slide. It basically tells us where we do not have value anymore. What's happened is that revenues have gone down. It's about a 33% loss compared to the previous year. And at one time when we were getting over $4 billion in value from our mineral leases, we are now getting about $650,000. I'm sorry, $650 million. So that's not unusual for minerals, especially when you look at gas, because gas production normally goes down, the volume goes down, but also the price of gas has gone down significantly. So the tax rate itself, one of the things that we have tried to do is to maintain either a lower tax rate or a constant tax rate. And as we previously said, we are going to we have recommended that we maintain our current tax rate of 0.234 per $100 valuation. If you look at what we've done in the last 10 years, we have lowered our tax rate by about 11 to 12%. And so this is a rate that's been consistent with the last 2 tax years, and it's something that we feel comfortable that we can fund our current or our next year's budget and not having to raise that particular rate. So when you look at how we compare to other big counties, we've always prided ourselves on how we keep our tax rate low. And so when you look at us compared to the other 5 big counties, you'll see that our rate of 234 is still below all the other rates. It ranges from an El Paso rate of 48.9 to Tarrant County's 23.4. New construction was a strong suit this year. We have increased somewhat the value that we saw from last year. We have about $5.3, almost $5.4 billion in new construction. That's up from about $5 billion from the year before. So we saw some very good steady growth in that. The interesting thing on that particular slide is that a lot of that came from commercial rather than simply residential. And this
would you provide us at some point in the future a comparison of our new construction growth to the other big counties'
Sure.
new construction growth?
Yes, we will.
I'd like to see that comparison.
So on this particular slide, what we're looking at is the value of the single-family homes. While in the past we've seen a significant increase in the value of those homes, This year, we didn't see that great of an increase. In fact, the average home value increased only by 1.8%. We moved from $218,000 per household or per home to about $222,000. So when you apply the proposed tax rate of 0.234, what you're going to see is that for a person that has a home that is valued at $222,000, that the total tax for the county would be $521.32 on an annualized basis. When you factor that in, that is a $9 increase over last year, or 75 cents a month. So we think that we're well within a range where that the rate supports what we want to do, and at the same time it does not become onerous to our residential population. And so what we'd like to do is the same process, or follow the same process that we had last year and years prior. What we're going to ask you to do today is to take tentative motions and votes. And these are not final, because what we're doing today is really the start of the budget year process rather than the conclusion. It is our intent to bring a balanced budget for you to vote and a tax rate for you to vote on September 8th. And at that time, you'll be voting on a series of things. So between now and what we decide today, and as we move forward, Helen will go ahead and fine-tooth that budget, go ahead and fine-tune the budget itself and be able to bring that back to you. But what we're asking for you to do today is to, if you want what is present, if you want that in the final budget, we ask that you vote yes. If you do not want it in the budget, then we ask you to vote no, and we will not give any further consideration of that particular item. And then to be considered is one where that you would like more information, or there needs to be greater discussions at staff level before we make a recommendation. You finally approve an item to be placed inside the proposed budget for FY21. And with that, if there are any questions, members of the court? If not, then I'm going to ask Ms. Tidwell to come forward and talk a little bit about the revenues. Ms. Tidwell, there you are.
So good morning.
Good morning.
So this is the most challenging revenue estimate I can say. Maybe the first one was pretty challenging because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But this year it kind of feels like I don't really know what I'm doing either, because there is no solid answer. I wish there were. We worked with the departments very closely. So everything you see here was discussed with whatever area was responsible for that revenue area. So on the first sheet, we can stay here a minute to see that overall the projected revenue is relatively flat, and that there are a few increases. Obviously, there's a whole lot of decreases that offset those increases. And so I'm going to move to this second page where I'm going to talk about the items that are particularly affecting the revenue. The first item there, of course, is sales tax collection on commissions. That's off of sale of motor vehicles through the tax office. And right now, people aren't buying cars, apparently. And then even the motor vehicle collection commission below that is a fee that we receive for people registering their vehicles. And of course, the state's got a program where you can register now or you can register later. And it appears a large number of folks are waiting to register later when they open back up statewide. And then as we move on down through our constable fees, passport fees, pretty much all of our fee offices are showing fairly significant decreases in some of their revenues, whether it's because they were closed or whether the activity is decreased, or a variety of reasons. You see the decreases there for those types. Those are the larger ones. And then we have our court fines. Of course, the courts have been more or less closed and operating in a very limited capacity for an extended period of time. Liquor by the drink, that's in your intergovernmental revenue column on the first page. And needless to say, with bars closed and people not able to buy liquor by the drink, that number is way down. Interest income, it's in the basement. The current projections for interest rates for 2021 are below 10 basis points at this time. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but we're projecting only earning $200,000 of revenue, which is unprecedented. We're going to work with the NACO program and some other things to see if we can improve that, but interest is not going to bring us any money this year. The parking revenue is primarily the family law garage, and obviously we didn't have jurors, we didn't have people coming to the courts, so that revenue is significantly down. And in case we've been too grim and the world turns out to be a sunnier place, we've increased contingent revenue from the $5 million that it's historically been for a while to $10 million, which of course includes an offset of $10 million in expenses, so that if we find additional money that it's in the budget and we can use that funding. And then of course the last item comes out of the out of the road and bridge, and it relates to the sales tax fee, again, that we collect off of vehicle registrations through the road and bridge fund. With that said, the good news, I suppose if there is any, is on cash here.
Let me
okay.
Just from the standpoint on the contingent revenue, if we were to get another CARES package, would that revenue show up in there if it was designated for lost revenue? Is that part of what we would recognize that into?
That would be a good legal question, I would think. For me, the way I would look at that is this is for completely unknown. If we were to receive a CARES package for lost revenue, then I would assume we could use that for all those decreases I just talked about. I mean, if it's truly for lost revenue, then I could go back to my liquor by the drink and say, well, gee whiz, we lost $6.7 million in revenue from liquor by the drink, and I would assume we could use it to offset that. But again, that would be a legal question. This is for truly, all of a sudden the courts open back up and people start showing up and people start buying cars and the economy picks up and everything's good, so that we can spend that kind of funds, is the way I understand it and have always looked at it.
Well, and I went through and looked at that. I mean, y'all are being very conservative, and I appreciate that very much. I know it had to be a tough year to sit down and try to do this, and it's, to say the crystal ball was a little cloudy,
Yes.
Would be an understatement.
And I feel very strongly about being conservative this year, because while today is uncertain and tomorrow is uncertain, at the point we are today, I really feel that future years are still uncertain as well. And so to have not been conservative this year as we move into the unknown, I think we'll benefit from having been conservative regardless of what happens in 21, 22.
And again, your tax revenue estimates are based upon collections of 99.5,
Yes,
whereas
sir.
in the past those would have been over 100%.
Would have been 100%. This year, again, we anticipate we're going to collect 99.88. So we're down in the current year as far as we will make that up from other line items that are over, but we are actually below 100% for this year's collection.
That's not to give permission for 99.5%
No.
collection.
No, taxes are still due. They're
Maximum effort.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So the other item, the good news, is okay, it was working. Now it's asleep. There we go. So the cash carry forward, we did have some additional funding that was in reserves last year. We had an increase in the percentage that I think kind of went unnoticed. And so taking us back down to where we'd more historically been at the 13 to 14% of reserves to budget, we had an additional increase there. So cash carry forward, our estimate is up. And then the road and bridge fund primarily is over. We had good news there too, it's up, but that's primarily related to just underspending. And so with that said, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you have. Otherwise, then I think your work's ahead of you to figure out what to do with the money that you do have.
On the cash carry forward for road and bridge, aren't we transferring more than that? I mean, basically, they have a cash carry forward, but we transfer money out of GR over to that every year, and so really it's that cash carry forward is it's extra money. It just means it's less transfer. Because if we were, okay.
Yes.
In debt service, we're always trying to hold around $1 million.
Yes, and because taxes are down and revenues are down, then obviously it's down a little bit below the million.
Thank you.
Good morning. So I know I've only presented once, but I want Candace to present today. So Candace Bate, the Assistant Director, will make the presentation for the PowerPoint.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Good morning.
In regards to the proposed budget, when you compare the FY 2021 proposed budget to the FY 2020 adopted budget, there's an approximate increase of $18.5 million. The significant variations include the interfund transfer from general fund to capital and road and bridge. In addition, the personnel recommendations include 25 new positions and $8.6 million for merit and step increase. It's important to note that structural adjustments is not included in the proposed budget. Other increases include 5.2 in counsel fees. As the courts reopen, we anticipate an increase in indigent defense costs to the county. An additional 2.39 was included for reserves. 2.1 was set aside for the Community Health Diversion Program. An additional $1.74 million for software maintenance, and $1 million for termination pay in anticipation of longer tenured employees retiring. Lastly, $700,000 was added in anticipation of the custodial services contract ending and the RFP being issued in FY 2021.
So we're anticipating custodial services going up that much?
That is correct. The RFP is out.
What kind of percentage increase is that?
Percentage increase, I don't know the answer to that, but they're adding the hourly, they're increasing the hourly rate so that they can, they're having a hard time staffing with the current rate, so the RFP is going to go out at a higher rate, hourly rate, offering a higher hourly rate.
So so let me ask.
No, David's not here.
David's missing in action. So, I mean, I thought we would put out, generally I would think we'd put out an RFP, and this is what you're going to charge us to do all the custodial work. And if that's the case, then shouldn't they be setting the hourly rate instead of us setting the hourly rate?
No, in the RFP we've said what the hourly rate is in the past.
Okay.
And it's significantly lower, and there are areas that they can't get someone to go into that area.
Okay.
Okay, on to slide 18. In regards to the new positions, 25 are recommended in this year's budget. 15 of those are related to increased workload, and 10 are related to new programs. We'd like to note that the Probate Court 1 position, the Assistant Court Investigator, will be offset by a reduction of project salary savings of approximately $115,000. The recommended allocation of the general fund cash carry forward is as follows: $65 million for reserves, $6.54 million for undesignated, and the remaining balance of $24.4 million for capital. The total capital is $28.7 million. The balance of the recommended capital that cannot be funded with cash carry forward will be funded by the general fund operating budget. This aligns with what we've done in previous years.
So back on just the previous page, we had total, y'all recommended 25 positions out of a request for 62.
63, sir.
Okay. All right.
Regarding employee compensation, the allocation for non-law enforcement is based on 3%. The total cost to the general fund is approximately $8.1 million, which includes the step increase for law enforcement. Approximately $513,000 is allocated for road and bridge merit increases. And as previously stated, the proposed budget is based on the tax rate of 0.234. The proposed tax rate is below the no new revenue rate. And lastly, the Budget and Risk Management Office is pleased to present a proposed balanced budget that aligns with the available revenue and cash carry forward. Again, the recommended capital is $28.7 million, which represents approximately 2/3 of the original capital requested. I'll now turn it back over to Mr. Manius.
Okay, we are now at that point with that. Talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing on September 8th. We're going to request that you do go ahead and adopt the tax rate. We'll have a public hearing, and we ask that you approve the budget itself. And then we will also we'll have another public hearing and ask that you do the approval of things such as expenditures, compensation, allowances for certain officials. This is something that you do every year as we set the tax rate. So finally, just another recommendation is that as we move forward today, if you want to have an item included in the final budget, well, then you will vote yes. These are all tentative votes. If you do not want to further consider a particular item, then we're going to ask that you vote no. And if there's anything that you want us to continue to work on before you make a decision, then we're going to ask you to vote for TBC. And Your Honor, members of court, that's our presentation this morning, and we're ready to go ahead and begin the budget process itself, hearing from the different departments. I believe that Helen has given you a document that shows the various departments who have already contacted the budget office and have indicated that they are satisfied with their proposed budget.
And again, I want to, before we get started, I want to thank not only Budget and GK, your office, for everything y'all have done to get us to this point, but I really want to thank the department heads. We knew we were going into a lean year with everything that was happening. We were all very, I think, nervous and worried about where we would come out. And I really want to thank everyone for the way you looked at your budgets. Y'all combed through them with a fine-tooth comb, and I just really appreciate the work that everybody put into this to get us to the point that we're at. And, you know, this is what I know y'all always do, but I think this year you went above and beyond to get us to the point that we're at starting out today. So thank you. And with that, Helen, take it away.
Okay, the first is going to be the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff, how you doing?
To get just a clarification.
While he's talking, on the Sheriff's Department, they requested, I believe, 9 positions. We recommended 3, and I do believe he's going to be talking to you about the various positions.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I'll take off my mask. And thank y'all for being here. And Commissioner Johnson, you look great up there on Zoom on the big screen. And I thought you were kind of Johnny Carson, going to have an afternoon of relief of comedy and so forth like that. So we expect some good things from you later on. I don't know if he heard me or not, or if he's just staring me down. Yeah.
I said thank you.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
It's budget time.
All right. Well, thank you all for this morning, and I echo Judge Whitley's words there, the hard work that has been put in on such a year. And so I'd like to, if I could, just take a few minutes with what has happened in the Sheriff's Office and maybe just give a brief overview of the state of the Sheriff's Office and where we're at. And in this particular budget, which has been presented to you, there's a 0.7% increase in our budget line items. And saying things just for particular purpose, that things that we know is that, of course, we are in one of the fastest growing major counties in the United States, and there's no end in sight, and they will continue to do it. This morning we have an average jail population of 4,100. And due to the COVID issues, currently we've assigned 40 operational personnel to jail actions, meaning that we had to shut doors in various buildings, and we're not serving warrants, and also some special ops have been shut down just to make sure that we are meeting jail standards. And one of the things that our noble folks, I want you to know that incredibly proud of our people. They have risen to the occasion, and you know, I've thought about the great quote of C.S. Lewis, who I summarize, who talked in the late 40s of the great bomb scare, the atom bomb scare. He said, if that bomb is to come, let it find us doing what we normally do and do the right thing and stand courageously and live life boldly. Well, with those things said, our detention officers and detention staff in particular have done that. They were the first on with masks, and I suggest to you they'll be the last off with masks. And social distancing and law enforcement simply not a possibility. While other county personnel, well, there we go. Okay, I was fixing to say, well, maybe the budget's a little worse than I thought.
Yeah, David's not here, so we can't blame him for that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Social distancing in law enforcement is simply not a possibility. And I know why across the county other agencies have taken elaborate messages to make sure that their people are protected, and I applaud that, and I believe it is appropriate. But that's not going to happen at the back door of the jail or on an emergency call and patrol. Our folks showed up under the most stressful conditions. They did a great job with some 60 to 70 folks out a day connected to COVID. Other issues have arisen, such as we've reviewed things as time has gone on, such as 10 years ago when the LEC became operational, it was thought to be only 50% occupied with 50% with staffing, just 50% of the space. Well, today it's full, but yet we continue to stretch our people in every direction. We know, as we stated last year, according to jail standards, as I delivered to you, is they believe that we're probably 150 officers short. Facilities and types of inmates that have changed over the last few years, such as MHMR inmates rising from 25% of our population in the jail to 45%. And medical issues are absolutely on the rise. In fact, comparatively with a city of 4,000 that we call the jail, compared to any other population of 4,000, you'll find them the sickest. And our medical staff is absolutely working hard. In classification of prisoners that we are doing today versus even a year and a half ago, with everything that has happened, is making Cold Springs an obsolete facility because we have no minimum prisoners. And we have been forced to reopen Belknap, and the fact that the felonization of the jail is a very real thing, and it is occurring. We do have misdemeanors in jail, but they are generally violent and repeat offenders. And with these changes and under the conditions, we've spent over $1 million in overtime and still struggling to ensure our people get time off and meet other demands. We do have a staff study that is in progress, but we could easily put 50 jailers to work today. It is simply the quality of care of these prisoners that is driven by the availability of staff. That's the solution until some technology comes in places that replace people. In patrol, we currently have 46 deputies assigned to complete the task of a growing population of about 65,000 is our best estimate in the unincorporated area. And with supervisors including, our policing ratio is about 1 to somewhere over 1,000 people. National models, of course, recommend 2 officers per 1,000 population. We asked for 2 deputies in this budget, and of course it's been cut. While one set of statistics such as response time should be considered, we also must consist of the safety of our people in the field, and that safety is that the geographical beats that we police today are incredibly large, so backup and safety possibilities are always at risk and of concern. In the judicial arena, under these conditions, we've needed numerous deputies, and under the COVID, we've hired several temporary people, which is of great help, and they're being placed and arranged in these, not to go into our security measures, but we're having extra security measures that are going on, and we know that filings are substantially increasing, which of course affects our court clerks and our DA's office. But with that said, security requests continue to go up. The budget office did allow 3 new judicial positions in this, and we need them badly. We are thankful. We do believe that the courts will pick up. We will be doing a great deal of business there, and we think that security requests and bailiff requests are going to increase as they did last year. And we do have a request by judges that they would like to see it would take 6 deputies to cover the garages. That is not in the budget and not something that was in my request, but I wanted to make you aware of it. With the current climate, Tarrant County, we saw our good citizens of Fort Worth send a resounding message recently of police support in the recent half-cent sales proposition. However, I do believe the general mood, and always the mood of law enforcement, should be to reach for higher standards, which is a means of training and training time, which we lack training time a lot of times. With that, we asked for a scenario-based training emulation system that we could place our people in de-escalation training in a real-life scenario-based program along with use of force issues. That was a cost of $50,000 a year, meaning that we could take our staff of nearly 1,500 and rotate them through there for less than $50 a year and train them multiple times and refresh them multiple times as we go through the year. As we go into this new age of policing standards, which I think that we are, I may add that the Presidential Crime Commission on Law Enforcement is that both our chaplain and myself have participated with those commissions and talked about the mental well-being of officers as well as the juvenile issues that are going on in the treatment of juveniles. So we are involved in the conversation on a national level as well as a local level. But in this new age of policing standards, these are critical items, not only cost-effective, but time-efficient. So with giving a short state of what's going on in the Sheriff's Department, I do have some ask, and I know it's a tough year. And as C.S. Lewis did say, you know, if the bomb's coming, let it find us and find us doing the right thing. And it certainly has our staff. And while our officers have just, and I can't reiterate how incredible and how noble they have been to show up for work. I mean, our sick call officer are no higher than they were last year. People are showing up. They're wanting to be a part of the team and part of the solution, knowing that they're going to be at risk every day, whether it's fighting somebody at the back door or escorting a prisoner that can't communicate very well to them that may or may not have COVID and have had COVID. And in fact, with that said, I'm happy to report this morning that we only have 14 positive COVID cases in the jail. And you'll also find that in major counties that we have the lowest infection rate. And it's because of the good work of those noble people down the street that have done some really, really good things. But my ask this morning is to consider this, is to reconsider the scenario-based training system and put it back in the budget at $50,000 a year. And with this, with the SO troops, right now they are due for not a structure adjustment raise, but just a step raise. I would, with the Korn Ferry report that I reviewed just last week, still reports us in the bottom 25% of the market. And I would really appreciate if there's any consideration on raising that structure up by 3%, as if it is possible. That is a huge ask, but I think that we have got to be competitive. And of course, my final ask is the 6 positions that we did ask for in the budget that wasn't considered, which includes road deputies as well as some support staff, that they be considered to be put back in the budget. If all that's done, we'd be at a 1.1% increase far as our ask. That doesn't include the step or the other raises. And finally, we've never been here before, but we've never demanded so much out of our people than right now. And I think it's futuristic that we lean forward on what our county needs should look like in the future, which I submit to you that right now in law enforcement, with some technology not existing as of yet, with the law enforcement issues, it will be people to be paid competitive and facilities in a much nearer future that we need to consider. TCSO has risen to the occasion, and the loyalty and courageous attitudes should be a top consideration for our finalization of our budget. Thank you, and God bless you, and I know you got a tough job.
A couple of questions. The 6 positions that you said there, is that for the courts buildings?
No, sir. That was our ask for some support type. One of them is a transportation deputy, because we're doing more transports because our folks that were contracting with us has kind of got out of the business because of COVID and forced us to do that. And 2 of them are road deputies, and then the other 3, I believe, were some support people that we were trying to get in our budget office and our executive staff.
I mean, this morning it looked like...
Deputies, are you talking about patrol?
Yes, sir.
Officers?
Yes, sir.
And then I guess, I mean, we have heard from the judges on the buildings, and they said something about 6 people, but I mean, from the conversation that I've had or listened in on, you know, what they've said is they're looking for somebody to be there in the morning and in the evening when they're coming and going mostly, and that'd be a couple of hours.
We're doing that right now, sir.
Well, okay. Because they say you're not, and that's fine. I mean, I'm glad to hear you're doing it, because then I can say to them, it's happening.
Well, I'll double check that. Unless they've been called away for something else, we try to arrange to have 2 officers there every morning and every afternoon. Now, they're static hours. You know, if we send somebody down there and a judge leaves it earlier than that.
I understand.
Okay.
They may be there from 8 to 10 and maybe 4 to, somewhere around that time.
Right. So, you know, we may want to relook at some of the hours.
The other side of that, you know, I heard the jail population up. I know it looked like as of this morning that we had 256 paper ready. We had 260 parole, or basically blue warrant. That doesn't even count the mental health.
That doesn't, is at our best count is we have 600 prisoners that should be in the state's hands.
And you know, that's probably 65, 75 people that we're having to use to guard those folks, because the state's not only are they not taking them, they're not paying for them.
We've sent them bills, I think, and I think we've at least arranged those bills to go down there. I think our last one was $750,000.
Yeah, we're well over. Last year, I think we were at $10 million total for the year. We hit $12 million.
About 4 days ago.
Yeah, we hit $12 million. We still got ways to go.
And I agree with you. And we have reached out in various ways to the state, to the director of TDC, and said, you know, hey, we'll use as many fleet vehicles we can. We'll bring them to you. Just take them. And by the way, we have delivered some, but they are not opening up like they need to be.
Since July, I don't believe that we've transported more than 100. They've accepted more than 100, a little bit over 100.
I would say that's pretty close.
Out of the numbers that we have, you have 2 different groups. You have those that have been with us over 45 days, and then those that have simply been kept ready but waiting for the 45-day duty to accept. And I think the Sheriff's Department has about 400, 450 that have been with us for 45 days or more, which is a direct responsibility of the state.
Absolutely.
And that's costing our taxpayers, our local property taxpayers, that's $12 million just for the last, you know, before we, probably through July. And
we'll calculate that at $85 a day?
Yes, sir.
$85 a day.
If we could get them to take their prisoners or pay us, would be great. And we haven't seen that, and GK's right, because I think it has been less than 100. And I think we have 44 on chain this week is what we have. I think that was it. I don't know. There might be a few more going to Safe P and some other state jail facilities, but that is it.
Sheriff, do you have to transport those yourself, or do they actually come up and pick them up?
They have transported. We've done it both ways. We've done.
Both ways, trying to get people down there.
Yeah. If they open up and says, we'll take 45 prisoners, we'll be glad to have them on the bus ready to go.
I am sympathetic to adding back the scenario-based training. I think that every opportunity that we have to give our SO deputies additional training, especially in de-escalation techniques, is a very good investment on the part of Tarrant County. So I would support the $50,000 for scenario-based training.
Why don't we, I know that there's some other things, I see that. What I might suggest is let's stick the sheriff's budget under the to be considered. Let's tentatively put that training seminar over in the recommended column, and then when we get to looking at that, we can see about bringing all that together.
Sheriff, I believe I heard you say you had 4,100 prisoners now.
Yes, sir.
How many did you have this time last year?
It was pretty close to the same number, sir. We were, and we felt like we had 17 jailers last year, and we were working with the admin to work on this staff study to see what really, what the real numbers are. We opened up. I know that GK's been wanting to do that for years, and we were happy to do it. It's just taken a while to get through, and of course, COVID just kind of stopped it. So we're still pushing for that staff number. And right now, our people are working mandatory overtime, doing a great job of it.
So, didn't we?
Another question I have is, how many vacancies do you have today?
How many vacancies do we have this morning?
Yes.
We have 14 vacancies this morning. We probably have a couple of hundred people in background right now to fill those. We've been full on several occasions. We've met our marks, and but we have 14. We're averaging 7 to 10 people either retiring or leaving each month. And we have zero peace officers.
The lowest vacancies that you've had in a long time, then.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have done good there, and we're still doing it. We'll always have, of course, vacancies, but we do the best we can to fill them, and we also have gotten caught up where I think a lot of people are doing pretty well, quite frankly, on unemployment. So we're a checklist where they apply for us because they have to do some of those things, and they're not really interested. So that's kind of bogged down some of our background investigators. But we are vigorously going after new candidates.
Thank you.
Did we did fund some additional jailers with the COVID money?
Yes, 30 contract jailers, and they are also being sought out right now. And
are we filling those? Are you
yes,
having any luck filling those positions?
We are. We have some that are in background right now doing what we need to do there to try to get them into service, and we do have 30 temporary COVID jailers, if you will. And right now is one of our major regional jails have shut down or is in the process of shutting down. So we're fast tracking their people, but I think that'll be another few days or a few weeks before we see clear.
Have we filled any of those? I know people are applying for them. Have we actually engaged any to come to work for us?
No, there's none on the payroll yet. I think there's several in background.
Okay, thank you.
I would also point out, just for the record, that the $2.1 million that we are proposing to fund the Mental Health Crisis Diversion Center will have a tremendous impact on the 40% increase in mental health prisoners in the county jail. So that is an investment in our future.
And Commissioner Brooks, I appreciate the leadership of you and the court and the DA's office on that. I think that is going to have an impact on the quality of our community as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So there's one more issue that we might want to consider. You might remember that that earlier this year we funded 4 positions in the game room unit, and while activity was pretty high initially, that activity has fallen off. The way we structured that was that those 2 positions or 4 positions actually go away by the end of August unless it's renewed by the Commissioner's Court. And while we have funded those positions in totality in this budget, what we might want to do, and if we put this in a to be continued type discussion, is to take a good look at that unit to see if there's a need for all 4 of those units, and then simply move whatever is not needed over to some of these requests that the sheriff has made.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
And we've got some things going on this week and to review exactly that, review how they're doing out there.
Okay, so let's put that under the to be continued column, and then we'll go from there. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you.
I know you got a tough job, but I appreciate you listening and wanted to make sure that those things are on the records that we have a need. And again, the noble job our people are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
So we're now going to move to the constables. I believe that
Constables 1 through 7 are approve their budget, or in agreement with their budget. I've not heard from Constable 8. Constables 1 through 7 are satisfied with their budgets. We have not heard from Constable 8.
Constable 8 will approve his budget, so let's move on.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve the constable budgets.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the constable budgets 1 through 8. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, y'all. Push your button.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Well, we know that Commissioner Allen isn't here because she didn't say yay.
So we're now going to move to the medical examiner's office. Helen?
The medical examiner's office has...
Wait. Let's move back to the Sheriff's Department budget. Did we not approve the scenario-based training?
No, we put all of it in the to be continued.
Commissioner Brooks, I've highlighted it and it will be...
Yeah, I feel certain we'll move it, but just to vote on it all at one time.
All right.
One thing we forgot to do is to take a vote to put that on the TBC. So
We taking a vote to put it on TBC?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second. We have motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Medical examiner.
Medical examiners has one adjustment of $22,000 for temp money. This is in lieu of the one of the positions that they had requested, to see if that will accommodate the cremation applications that the high level of cremation applications they're experiencing. For 1 year, we're going to look at that for 1 year. So that increases their cost $23,683.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So now we're going to go to community services. The first one is
Fire marshal is the next one. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
My little bitty typing.
Yeah.
Fire marshal is in agreement with this budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now we're going to move to community services, and the first one is community supervision. We also have juvenile, public health, human services, child protective services, public assistance, Agrilife, veteran services, and archives.
Resource Connection is also in agreement with their budget.
And so So all of those departments have indicated to the budget office that they are satisfied with the proposed budget.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So we'll move down to the judicial. Helen.
17th, 48th, and 67th have contacted us and are in agreement with their budget. The 96th and the 141st I have not heard from. 153rd, 236 have contacted us in agreement. And let's see, and the 352nd. The rest of them I have not heard from. I don't know if anyone is here.
I see Judge Fitzpatrick here, so. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I believe we spoke last week. I am in agreement with my budget for my actual court. What we were speaking of had to do with the security of the judges' garages. And I think you guys kind of touched on that earlier, but I did want to make sure that you considered that we needed positions mandated on these, or positions mandated for the garages, because as I believe we discussed earlier, that the problem is that when the sheriff's deputies get busy, for instance, with protests or with, there's a death threat or whatever, or there's short officers, they take those positions from the judges' garages, and we don't have anybody to cover those.
Well, and that's why I was specific to ask him this morning, and I think he'll go back, but what I would like to get y'all to do is, kind of just check in the morning, check in the afternoon. If they're not there, let GK's office know, and then we will communicate and find out from the sheriff, because of the sheriff, you heard him.
I did, and that's why I came back in after I just talked to him, and he said that he thought that he communicated that he needed those positions. So I just want to make sure what is happening.
He communicated that the people were there.
Okay. For instance, when we had the protests, everybody was taken off to go cover the protests. Whenever they're short, they're pulling off the garages because they're short-staffed. So what I was told is that they needed those positions mandated for the garages. So I want to make sure we do clear that up. Also, if there are death threats on the judges, as you guys know, covering the garage from 8 to 10 or from 4 to 5 doesn't necessarily give us any security. There's been a lot of death threats on the judges, and I don't know if you guys are fully aware of the security issues that we face. I mean, as you saw in the news just a couple weeks ago, a judge's son was killed. There was a death threat, I believe, on a family law judge a couple weeks ago, and I know there was a death threat on a civil judge last fall. And so I do worry that, just saying we're going to cover the garage from 8 to 10 and 4 to 5 really doesn't do much for our security. And if somebody were to come in, just so you guys know, when I come into the garage, if there's nobody there, somebody could follow me in, and there's no way anybody would get there before I was killed.
We can go back and talk with them, but David just came back in. I mean, again, I think one of the things that we've got to look at is from the death threats. I'm not sure how they do that or where they go from there. I mean, do they follow them? I don't know, and they're probably not. They really don't want to discuss the security in those situations and what they're doing in those particular instances. But we'll talk with the sheriff. But I heard him assure us that they were going to be there and not, for the times. I just don't know that we're going to be able to cover them all day long.
Well, if I realized where we were in that discussion, I would have gotten here sooner. I had hearings this morning. I just want to make sure that if that issue can be tabled till we can figure that out. My understanding from talking to
it has been.
Okay.
It's tabled right now. His budget was tabled.
Okay.
And so we'll come back and discuss all the things that he's requested in that.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. So she was all right with the court?
Yes, her
budget?
court is fine.
And so
do we have anyone from the 96th here?
That was a newly elected Judge Gallagher. I'm not sure if he's aware.
He's the one. She's the one.
Just take them all at once if we can.
Well, I didn't know. See, he already knows. No, I don't know.
Excuse me. How about the 141st? 342nd?
That's me.
That's her. She's
And you said you're satisfied with your budget?
Yes, I did talk to Ms. Geis on Friday.
348? Okay. Besides those who are not in the courtroom, besides the judge that's in the courtroom, everyone else except the ones that I called have indicated to Helen that they're satisfied with their budget. So we're recommending that for the civil judges that we approve their budgets as recommended by the budget office.
So moved.
So,
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to go ahead and move to the family law. And we have a number that
Now, what about the criminal? You said civil a few minutes ago, but did you mean civil and
well,
criminal?
I'm using one sheet and it's not in order. So let's go to the criminal district judges, okay?
Okay, so do we need a motion on the criminal district judges?
Looks like
The criminal district judges, the magistrate, criminal court administration, grand jury, criminal attorney appointment, and criminal mental health all are in approval of their budget. They sent an email.
And I will read that email into the record. It said, please read the below to the Commissioners Court. On behalf of the judges trying criminal cases in Tarrant County, they are satisfied with their individual court budget FY21 recommendations. Criminal Courts Administration is satisfied with their FY21 budget recommendation. They basically say that they acknowledge that the current economic stress with COVID has placed, which has impacted the formulating of the 2021 budget. There are still additional needs, but the request can be delayed for a year. And then finally, they're saying thank you for the hard work and professionalism of the Budget and Risk Management Office. So basically, they are satisfied with their budgets.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Now we're going to move to grand jury criminal attorney appointment.
Now, what about family courts?
This is still part of the criminal courts group.
Okay.
The grand jury criminal attorney appointments and criminal mental health have all notified the budget office that they're satisfied with their budgets.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now we can go to the family courts. The 231st, 233rd, and the 322nd have not indicated if they are satisfied with their budget. The 324th has indicated that they're satisfied. 325th has not indicated, and 360th. Are there judges or representatives from any of the courts that we just announced in the courtroom today? Your Honor, members of the court, we're recommending that the Commissioners Court approve the budgets as recommended by the budget officer for those family courts that I indicated.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Helen?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what's going on with the CPS fees.
CPS?
All of them seem to have significant.
Oh, in the family courts, yes, sir, because those were originally over in the 323rd and moved over.
We moved them. We moved
Yes, sir.
everything. Okay.
So the 323rds was reduced, and all of the other family courts have been increased to show that.
The 323rds has been reduced.
Should have been.
I don't believe it has been.
Oh, yes, sir. That is because he still has cases out there that are pending, that were tried in his case, in his court, and they will continue. We'll look at that again mid-year to see if he has any more pending cases.
Well, I know, but if we're going to increase all those other ones, then there should be some increase, some decrease for the current year, shouldn't it? You got $1.2 million. If I'm reading it right.
And the 323rd in his CPS cases, yes, that is correct.
So, I mean, I know he's got to wrap things up, but you've added how much to those other courts?
In total, I don't know the answer to that.
probably close to 750,000.
It was significant, that is correct.
So it would seem to me like either one's got to come down, or we've just increased that area by $750,000.
That would be correct.
Nope, it's the one below. It's the one.
I missed it.
Okay, just starting at the top, it's 176 for Jesse. It's 26 or 27. 61. $176, 177,
I'm going to skip.
and 177. Looks like about 600,000, 620,000.
819, 696. 819, 696 with the
Okay, I'll buy
360th
that.
also.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I missed that one. So 800, so it seems to me like we've increased, so it would appear as though Judge Kim's ought to come down by close to 800,000.
We reduced what he requested. We did reduce his request.
But if we
To the back to
brought
the
it
same
down
thing it
800,
was
that
last
still
year.
leaves him 400,000.
Okay. So do we want to leave that on the to be determined, or you want me to go ahead and reduce it now?
Would y'all rather have a little bit more time to look at
Yes,
that?
sir.
Then let's leave,
Is that the 323rd?
yes,
sir.
it's just the 323rd.
We have not voted on the 323rd yet.
Okay. We haven't voted on any of the family laws yet. We're discussing them right now.
So we could take all of them excluding the 323rd and leave the 323rd to be determined?
Correct.
Okay.
So on the motion that was made and seconded, instead of approving all of the family law, or all of them, we're going to approve the family laws, but we won't approve State District Court 323. Is that okay?
It's okay.
And we will leave that as to be determined.
That's fine.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So where are we?
We are now at special budget, which is mine, and I'm satisfied.
Okay, so the next one is going to be the special judges, and that's something that is controlled by the budget department, and there's no changes.
There is actually a reduction overall.
But the budget that was presented, there's no changes to that.
No, sir.
Okay. We're requesting approval of special judges.
Thought they were all special.
You raise a good point, Commissioner.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Now we're going to county court of law. Okay, we are now going to move to county court of law. We have three of those. County Court of Law 1 and County Court of Law 2 have not indicated if they're satisfied with their budget. County Court of Law number 3 has. Is there any representatives from County Court of Law 1 or 2 that would like to address the court? Hearing none, staff is recommending the approval of the budgets as submitted by the budget office for the county courts at law.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
He says it's good.
Yes.
Who is it?
Motion passes unanimously.
96. The new-
Oh,
So now we're going to be moving to the county criminal courts, 1 through 10. Helen, they have indicated to you that they are satisfied with their
Yes.
budget.
All of the county criminal courts were satisfied with their budgets. 1 through 10.
Staff is
Move
recommending.
Move approval of 1 through 10. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
I've not heard from probate one, but probate two.
So we have, next one is going to be probate courts.
One is satisfied, I have not heard from two.
Probate one is satisfied. We have not heard anything from probate two. Is there anyone from probate two in the courtroom at this time? Hearing none, we're recommending that the Commissioners Court approve probate 1 and 2 as presented by the Budget Office.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the JPs, 2, 3, and 8 did not contact us. Like
Okay.
yesterday, satisfied.
So we're now moving to the Justices of the Peace. We have not heard from JP 1 or 2 nor 8.
2, 3, and 8.
2, 3, and 8. Is there anyone from JP's 2, 3, or 8 in the courtroom that would like to address the Commissioners Court? With that, staff is recommending the approval of the budget of all 8 JP courts.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Before we leave the JPs, I'm assuming that everyone has received a request where they're wanting to upgrade their administrative clerks from 16 to 17. And they sent us a total budget for all 8 precincts was $222,399.52. Do we want to consider that?
Those are in the reclasses, and they're still being determined. They have not finalized through JEC. Ange is in the room if she wants to.
Do you have money set aside if they're approved?
Yes, sir. The reclasses are in the budget. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We actually did review that position on Thursday, and it was recommended by the committee to go from 16 to 17.
Okay.
Thank you, Ange. So did you hear that, JD?
No, I did not.
What Ange said was those were reviewed on Friday, Thursday and they were recommended, and they are in the budget. So that should be something that will be done.
Okay, thank you.
We voted on the JPs?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we take a break?
Very good.
Maybe 5 minutes, which will probably end up being 10.
So you're teasing me.
Yes. Finally.
Judge Woodley, are you ready to begin?
Certainly.
Okay. So the next one we're going to go to is the Criminal District Attorney's Office. While Ms. Wilson is okay with the recommendations, but Ms. Wilson would like to address the court at this time.
Also, on her recommendations, there are some adjustments. There was in the 2 misdemeanor attorneys recommended. After speaking with the criminal district attorney, we have reduced it to 1 misdemeanor attorney and 1 strategic initiative manager, and reducing her capital request for a net 0 impact of these changes.
So thank you for my budget, and when y'all vote, that's a preliminary thank you. I wanted to update you on one of the things that you all gave us last year, very briefly, which was an adult sexual assault team. It was 2 attorneys, a court chief, an assistant chief, an investigator, and a staff person. Since they started on November 1 until August, they have filed in their team over 100 cases, 101 cases in the adult sexual assault team. Due to increased funding and increased testing laws for DNA from sexual assault kits, we're seeing an increase in cold case filed cases. So 15% of that 101 cases are cold cases, and 2/3 of those cold cases were offenders that had prior rapes and prior allegations of sexual assault and had not been caught. So we're very proud of that work. 25% of our cases, total cases, involved defendants with prior sexual assault allegations. One of the big benefits of having that team is to have a central location for all of our 56 police agencies to talk to about their sexual assault cases, because these are difficult cases. And they have advised 53 different agencies on cases since they started, and many of those cases have resulted in case filings. And they've also provided about 41 hours of training to law enforcement and related community groups. So I wanted to let you know that, because I know every time we start a new initiative, we tell you what we think the data is going to be, but it's really been even more successful than we thought. And I wanted y'all to know that, and thank you for that last year.
Thank you.
That is tremendous work, Sharon, and we like making investments that pay off like that. Yes.
I'll take that as a motion to approve the budget.
Yes.
With the agreed upon adjustments.
We'll say second. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
District Clerk.
District Clerk is satisfied with his budget.
Hey, move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fickus?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
County Clerk.
County Clerk is satisfied with her budgets.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Domestic Relations, they are satisfied with their budget.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Jury Services.
Is satisfied with their budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now we're going to go to, we already have done the special judges. We're now going to move to Courts and Judiciary.
Which is also under the budget office, and we are satisfied with our budget. Now, there is an increase in this for special, for indigent defense in the event that the courts start seeing cases again. So that has increased. We have increased it in lieu of indigent defense.
So how much would be the budget for 2021 for indigent defense?
That is in all the different cost centers. Candace, is that on your PowerPoint? I believe that was on the.
It was just the increase.
Okay.
So I can get the number.
It's significant.
Would you get me a number, please?
We can have that number for you either later on today or in the morning.
I mean, as I'm sitting here looking at this, we appropriated in 2020 $406,000, and that gives council for capital a total of 1.6. Correct?
A total of 1.6
million under. I'm looking under courts, judiciary.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the council fees courts and the council fees capital murder.
Correct. Now, we take money from here and put it over into the courts. So there's no expense that ever happens here, but it reduces. So it looks like it's higher than it really was, because what it started out was more money. No expense happens here. It happens in the court itself.
Okay, but then, so in the recommended 2 million, 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you're saying that
Capital murder cases, the 2.2 is capital murder.
so you requested it and then you recommended it, you recommended your budget be higher after you recommended that it be. I just want to be sure I'm following
Yes.
your logic here.
Yes, the recommended. Normally we go back and we show that, but this is actually an increase over what you see the 2021 versus 2022. And normally we would go back and change that in that version. We did this on the 9th hour when we saw that there was some revenue that we could potentially be able to cover these increases instead of putting in an undesignated. Monday when we receive the revenues. Instead of increasing our undesignated, we took and put it in the court cost. There are 2 or 3, one of them is a pro se case, and which is receiving, there's 2 seating 1 and 2 defense attorneys on it. And then another one, it will start their voir dire in, what is that, Tuesday? They'll start the next Tuesday, the voir dire. When does that voir dire? When does that voir dire start? That's not a capital murder case, excuse me. That's the case that they're doing the voir dire over at. Yes, thank you. Judge Gallagher has a capital murder case going on that's a pro se. Yes.
So, okay, that's where okay, I think I'm understanding it a little bit more right now.
So let me ask you a question, Judge, and this might clear it up. In the past, whenever we have had counsel fees for capital murders and we didn't have enough allocated in this particular budget, do we go to the undesignated to receive those monies?
We went to yes, historically we've always used all of the money that is allocated in this court's judiciary and undesignated.
So what you're doing here, rather than waiting to move it from undesignated here, you're already allocating it in this budget?
That's correct.
And so as I'm looking at actual for prior years, and we seem to hover around the 500 to 600, that's after you eliminate the counsel fees and the counsel fees for capital murder, because you transfer that out of your budget,
out of this
and
budget,
put it into the other one.
Into the court, the actual court that has the case. So
this makes it difficult for me to figure out exactly how much.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
So it's not 4 million too.
No, it's going to be more like 500,000-600,000. If you just go ahead.
For indigent defense?
No, sir. No, it's more than that. But I can get you a total number.
Please.
There is an indigent defense cost, a normal indigent defense. What we're talking about here is capital murder.
Well, it's going to be counsel fees. Both of these are for regular court and capital murder.
If you'll look at the column, the first column of numbers from moving from left to right, you see 2019 expenditures. And if you look at the bottom, that shows that the total expenditures for 2019 were $540,000. Now, if you look at the next column over for 2020 appropriations, and you go down and you eliminate the basically 1.6 million for counsel fees, over the course of the year, those counsel fees get transferred out.
So if you look at 2019, if you're looking at your budget, the sheet right now, if you look at 2019, you'll see it's zero. There's no cost there at all. Because we moved every single dime there was there. In addition, every Tuesday, starting usually in July, all the way through the end of the year, going into October, November, and December as the invoices continue to come in, we used up all the 2019 and started on undesignated to put it in the courts so that it would cover the indigent defense cost. If you look at 2020's appropriations, you see that there's still money there on counsel fees courts and counsel fees murder right here, where I'm talking about. You'll see there's still money there because the courts have not had the cases. Because they haven't had the cases, it's anticipating that they will either bring in a visiting judge, which they have talked about doing, or just trying to hear as many cases as they possibly can in 2021. This is in anticipation of them hearing more cases or go back to normal.
But it sounds like even going back to normal, we ought to be budgeting more, because what you're saying is every year we have to go into the undesignated.
Yes, sir. Every year we take money from the undesignated. And I can find that number for you also if you'd like to see how much we have taken from undesignated, usually starting in August through September.
I just want to know how much we spend.
I will give you that.
Defense from every source.
I will have that number for you, sir.
Okay.
We need a,
We do.
no, we don't. We have a motion, we just need to vote, right?
And I think, have we not voted on this one already? We have not.
We haven't voted. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
We have done all of the community. Actually, the next one is human services.
I see. You said we have not done human services.
No, sir.
We haven't.
No, sir.
Okay, so we're now going to human services.
They're satisfied with their budget.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services gave us their number for their decreased personnel. It has for quite some time been 40.5 that we've been paying for under the line that's highlighted. This year, the movement went down to 31.5, and those 9 positions moved over to our community, our kids. So there's a reduction of $493,470 in the that we will be supporting the 31.5 positions.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'd like to discuss this one a little bit. I mean,
I see a question.
basically, what has occurred is our community, our kids, is doing a lot of what Child Protective Services have done in the past. They moved a number of employees over. How many employees? Do you know how many actually?
No, sir, I don't know. They just moved 9 of ours. So they contracted with our community, our kids contracted with the state of Texas to do a portion of CPS cases. So those positions, the 9 investigators that were in this budget, moved over to that new function under our community, our kids, which reduced our count from 40.5 to 31.5 positions that we support.
This is the program that ACH.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I want to be sure of, and maybe I misunderstood, I may have not been listening closely enough this morning. When the 9, or when all of them went over, are the state paying for every single one of the employees that went over to ACH?
I don't know that answer.
Because again, remembering that the state said, we basically have said we're going to pay for 40 more investigators than what the state was willing to pay for.
What I do know in the presentation that they both made was that the OCO or ACH contracted with the state, and I can't say a lot about it because I'm not that familiar with it, but they contracted with the state, and that agreement included these 9 positions that are moving out of our control over to theirs, or our expense over to theirs. That's what I know. I don't know what the cost. I don't.
How much did ACH request from the county?
They didn't request a dollar amount. They requested the amount that these 9 positions cost.
And that you're saying would, that, so that would have been 493,407.
And we don't know the exact cost of that until the state gives it to us. And they gave it to us on Friday to show that the reduction for the 9 positions was $493,407. And yes, OCLK did request in a meeting that any of that money be moved over to them.
But it's not a net decrease in expenditure, it's just a reallocation of the expenditure from one agency to another. Is that correct?
I did not recommend in the public assistance to pick up those positions in through our cost.
So right now, that 493 is just we're not spending it. And nobody, I mean, ACH is not getting anything from the county at this point.
That's correct.
And so, I mean, I'm of a mind to give that to them. That you know, it's just coincidental that it's CPS, which is just what I found 600,000 of a few minutes ago.
It's interesting that the reason the state is doing this is to cut the costs of the state's programs. And they felt that they could do it for a lesser amount if they went to a private nonprofit. I don't know if that's very good logic.
No, they were doing such a crappy job at what they were doing because they weren't funding enough people and they weren't doing the things that they needed to be doing, and they had kids spread all over the state. So, you know, this ACH did a pilot program. It's been extremely successful, and
we need them to continue to be extremely successful.
And I think their board, they were upside down about $2 million the first year between what the state thought they should pay and what it cost ACH to do it right.
My comments were not directed at ACH.
I know they weren't. I really do. But what I'm just saying is, I don't mind us putting this on the to be continued, but I'd really like for us to look at that, maybe for y'all to look through there and have a pretty good understanding. You may already have as good an understanding as you need, but I'd like for her to look at it and maybe talk with us a little bit more about that, because I'm of a mind to put that 493,000 with ACH from that perspective.
I'm of a mind to consider agreeing with you on that. I don't know how they can perform the service without the resources.
Well, and that's what I don't know. I think the question is I think, as I understand, Helen, they got the resources. I don't know how much money they got. They got the 9 people. I just don't know how much the state paid them.
That's the point.
They were actually paying less to I think the salary was more and the benefits were less because it wasn't state benefits is the way it was going on. And I know that initially there were some that transferred over there, but some did not. So the actual people themselves transferred over, and some did not. They were absorbed in other positions with the state and chose not to go over there.
So I guess what I'd like to do right now is put this.
Modify the motion.
So what I'd like is Child Protective Services could be approved the way it is because we're reducing their line. Public assistance is where this would go, and it would need to be yes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You want it to be put in the to be determined category.
Yes, because we don't have a GL account, and I'd like to get with the auditors
We don't know at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion now to approve the CPS, and I think we can go forward with that. If there's no other questions or discussion, please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Now for public assistance, I'd say we want to put that one on to be considered.
Yes, I agree.
I'll make that the motion, and
Second.
Roy seconds it. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Next one is Agrilife, and they've indicated that they're okay with their budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Veteran Services
Is satisfied?
is satisfied.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Historical Commission, they're satisfied.
Move approval. Move approval. Second. I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I'm satisfied with my budget.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 3 with 1 abstention, 301.
County Administrator is satisfied.
County judge.
We just did County Judge.
Oh, did we? Missed it.
Second.
Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion, Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So we're going to now go to non-departmental, both general fund and road and bridge. And that's a budget that's controlled by the budget department.
And there is we maintained the reserves at 13.5%, so you will see an increase on this line item.
But no changes to the proposed budget, right?
No, not.
And this $8 million decrease in operating transfer
Was the decrease for the capital, and the capital was 36 million last year, and it's now 28 million. So it's a decrease.
I got it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is where Renee spoke about the increase in contingency revenue. This is also where that additional 5,000 corresponding increase is. So we went from 5 million in contingency revenue and expenses to 10 million in the revenues and 10 million in the line item, expense line item.
Okay.
So did we vote on that yet?
We hadn't had a motion yet.
So it would be road and bridge and general fund non-departmentals.
Move approval of non-departmental, both the road and bridge and general fund.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Debt service? It's pretty much
I
self-explanatory.
think we ought to pay it.
This is something we don't have a choice about.
That's right.
I move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. County Auditor?
They're satisfied with their budget.
Move approval of the county auditor's budget. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Budget risk?
We're satisfied with our budget.
Budget has done a good job. Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Tax assessor is satisfied with her budget?
Move approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Elections are satisfied with their budget.
They are satisfied, but I'd like to say one thing. If the additional locations are added towards the end of the voting process, the early election voting, there may need to be some adjustments, but we don't know what that might be. So we'll look at that in October after it starts. It is not in the budget at all.
What additional?
They're anticipating, Hyder has called and said that he may have to add some additional locations towards the, he spoke with you about this, GK? I just wanted to.
He's talking to the judge on. There seems to be, well, obviously, in early voting, that there is a significant increase in voting as you go to the end of that period. And so one of the things that Mr. Garcia suggested is that as we enter to those later days of early voting, that we create additional voting sites to take care of some of the overflow. That's something that has to be.
And what he's talking about there, he just says that if you go around the county, there are several different precincts or several different early voting sites that on the last 2 or 3 days, there is a bigger crowd. Mm-hmm. And so what he is suggesting is maybe the last week or the last 3 or 4 days, if he can, opening up some of the election day sites as for the last 3 or 4 days of early voting. So it wouldn't be changing or creating a new site, but it would be taking an election day site that might be, if you had lines and sitting here and you had another vote center that was going to be open on election day right there, you might open it early in an effort to try to relieve pressure off of those 3 or 4 spots that have historically had long lines the last 2 or 3 days of early voting. And as he's looked around the county, he believes that there's probably anywhere from 10 to 15 of those sites. Now, part of the issue is going to be how early may he have to do that. And the other part of it is we can do it if we realize there's a problem, but then we have to wait 5 days to do it, according to the Secretary of State. So
it seems to me that this is a situation where it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. Because if you ask the Secretary of State, can we do this, they're going to say no.
Well, we can't open it without asking them and getting 5 days. So
they don't want to make it easier to vote.
Well,
so while we've not included anything, we will address that if it happens.
The goal will be to try to not have long lines
I get it.
at voting locations all over the county. And the thought process there is he kind of looked at it, and he'll be talking with the election board about this, and then he'll also be coming to the court, because obviously we've got to approve that extra cost. He feels like there's probably, again, as I said, 10 or 15. And what he did is he went back and looked at the last November election that we had. I don't think there were lines really this much for this runoff, but for the primary, where there were a lot of long lines the last 2 or 3 days. And really, they are all over the county. And there were probably anywhere from 10 to 15 election day locations that were central to where those waiting lines were. And so I think if we see that same thing occurring, or we think it's going to occur in the November election, then the attempt will be to go ahead and do that.
That's very creative. I applaud the elections administrator for his creativity. And I'd like to see us set aside the money.
Well, the money I think will be there. It may be in what we're calling undesignated.
Undesignated, yes, sir.
But I think it would be there. The only other way that we could do that would be to just increase the number of early voting locations. The problem with that is there's a crowd at the beginning, there's a crowd at the end, and it gets pretty dry in between. And so you could end up wasting a lot of money.
It's the situation that we face with our college and university sites, that they told us we could not open part-time.
Yeah, once you open them, they got to stay open from there until the end.
Right.
Okay, so you have elections in front of you?
Yes, sir.
I do not have a motion.
So,
go ahead. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Information technology, they are satisfied with their budget.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Human resources, they are satisfied with their budget also.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Purchasing. Purchasing is satisfied. Mr. Beecham, are you coming forward?
He appears to be coming forward.
We're very satisfied with our budget. I just want to take a moment and publicly thank Helen, Candace, Travis, Elliot, Holly, and everybody in their office for all they've done in this COVID craziness.
All right, you forgot one.
And Michelle.
And Michelle.
And who else?
And Mai is new.
All of them. Helen and friends.
So that's what you should have started off by saying, but you kind of decided to wade right into it.
But I really can't tell you what they've done on the side to make this thing work. Putting in requisitions at the last moment. I mean, we've really had to pull the trigger in a hurry, and there's no way that we could have done it without the budget office. And everybody in this county, all departments, should give them a personal thank you because they've gone above and beyond. That need to be said. Thank you all, guys.
And Jack, I want to thank y'all.
But now it's Jack Beecham.
Sorry?
What'd you say, JD?
It's usually Tom Wilder to delay the meeting, but now it's Jack Beecham.
That's about as low as it gets right there.
Yeah, when you start getting compared to Wilder, you about hit the bottom. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I do want to thank Jack and his department, and really everybody. Again, through this whole COVID thing, we have had to, basically do some backwards flips to get some of the stuff that we've gotten in here. And I really want to thank everybody in the job that they've done to be able to fill some of the holes that we had that have helped not only the county, but have helped the community and continue to help the community. And so, again, thank everybody for that also.
It's across the board in every department, and every employee has stepped up and made this thing work.
Okay, facilities, they are satisfied with their budget.
But I would like to, they are satisfied with their budget, but you asked a question earlier, and David has texted me and said that they set their model has been established since 1998 with them stating the rate on the RFP, and prior to that it was the vendor set it, and it was not a good service that they were receiving at that time. So he wanted you to know that in 1998 they changed
custodial contract.
Yes, sir, the custodial contract. In 1998 they changed the model, and it's been working very well since then. And they use the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics average wage for custodial work. And they haven't changed the rate since 2012. So I'm telling you what David wanted me to say. But they are satisfied with their budget.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. So do we know what those rates are?
Not yet, sir. He said
Well, if we set them, we already know what they are.
let's see, $11 per hour. From $8.76 to $11 per hour.
Custodial.
But if they were still operating under an $8.76 per hour
I think that's a new one.
wage rate, then they're well below market.
Is that the new one or is that the old one?
No, that's the old one. They're going to, our current rate is $8.76. We've changed it to $11 on the RFP. She said it's less than the current something.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so now we're, yes.
And I'm assuming that that was on every one of the buildings that we just talked about.
Yes, sir.
So are we ready to move to Road and Bridge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're now going to move to Road and Bridge. The first is Precinct 1.
And there is a change on their budget. We have reduced their reclasses per their request from 5 to 3, so you will see a reduction of $10,738 in the maintenance budget, Precinct 1's maintenance budget.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion, Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 3, 1 abstention.
Precinct 2.
They're satisfied with their budget.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 3.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 3, 0 with 1 abstention.
Precinct 4.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Commissioner Johnson?
Abstain.
Motion passes 3 with 1 abstention.
And then finally, Transportation.
Including, and they're satisfied with their budget.
Transportation is satisfied with their budget.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Right away? We did transportation, we didn't do right away.
I move for approval.
That's all part of transportation.
It is.
Well, it's two different things on, okay, I mean,
Well,
you've got a section called transportation.
Right.
The right-of-way section is a different section.
I understand.
So do we want to vote on the right-of-way section?
Well,
Since
if
it's
we
not
do-
included in transportation.
Out of an abundance of caution, I'll second Commissioner Fickus's approval motion.
so that would be, then that would also include central garage and sign shop, which are under transportation. All of those are under Randy Skinner transportation.
Okay, so right now we've got the right-of-way. So I guess what we're saying is we're going to put right-of-way, central garage, and sign shop in there.
Yes.
So we have that motion, and we have a second. So on the right-of-way, and this is where there was a big increase, and you're saying, again, that's what the state has said they need.
Yes, and well, there is some interest earnings in the 2006 transportation bond that he will be utilizing if the state needs to, if they're going forward with their full amount.
Because they had requested 14 million and you've only approved 3.5.
That's correct. So the state right-of-ways will be funded also through another fund, which we'll bring later to y'all, and it's 477. It's the 2006 transportation bond, and any of the interest earnings there we take, and he'll subsidize what he needs for the state. The state gave us originally that 8.9 million. They're doing over a 3-year period, so we're funding year by year as they are doing the same thing.
Is the 8.9 over 3, or are we funding the 8.9 over 3?
No, sir, we're not. We're only funding 1.2 here and another 2.1, I believe, when we submit the special purpose budgets, for the total of 1 year in association with the state doing a 3-year planning on that.
Randy, come here. Is this the Southeast project?
Yes, a big portion of this is going to be for the Southeast Connector. A big portion of this will be for the Southeast Connector project, and I believe that was around close to 8 million, I believe, 7.7 million. But we were able to make an agreement with TxDOT for us to be able to fund, much like we do with our bond program projects, over incremental periods. So that reduced the burden for this year, and TxDOT was agreeable to that.
And then what's the 6 million for county right of way?
So we originally had some funds in there, I believe a large portion for Grants Lane, I believe, but I think we may have reduced that. Helen, if that's not.
I thought Grants Lane stayed in.
Oh, has it stayed in?
On the Grants Lane, it was to buy the right-of-way. You had
Yes.
mentioned something about some pipelines that had to be reallocated,
Right.
which would be done in a different year.
Right, and so we I think reduced that to about 1 million, I believe, for that. So we're made some cuts quite a bit in our right-of-way section.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then finally, public health. Public health is satisfied with their budget. They've also been communicating with the hospital district, and we're recommending approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And also, we ask that you approve the budget for the resource connection. We think we covered it, but they are satisfied with their budget. Plus, they are indicated they're going to pay $75,000 back to the county to cover part of the long-term costs that the county upfronted on several projects.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. So again, it's 75. What are we talking about? What was that for?
The HVAC that was played several years ago. Is the auditor in here? No. Several years ago, they had their HVAC replaced, and they've been slowly repaying it back over the course of approximately 10 years now. And Jamie Willis has been more aggressive in paying that back.
So have we got it paid off?
No, sir.
How much do we lack?
I don't know the answer to that. That's why I was looking for the auditor's office. They have the balance.
Because they have about, what, 1 point something million in the oil and gas fund?
Yes, sir. But they've been paying it back from their
Revenue?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
That they've not utilized. They utilize that gas fund, yes, for permanent repairs out to the buildings, but this was done prior to, I believe, that gas fund being established, and so
Okay.
it's being paid back through this.
Okay. All right. Did we vote on that yet? Do we have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
That's it.
Motion passes unanimously.
So that's it. That's all we have today. Just a reminder to the court that tomorrow and until September 8th, we are always going to carry an item on our regular Tuesday agenda that deals with the budget so that you can discuss any items that you might want to discuss at that time. Also tomorrow, we're going to ask you to do various motions to put the county in compliance with SB 2, and it's under the administrator section, and you can look at that in your court material. With that, Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Again, I want to thank everybody, because the reason this went as fast as it did is not only because y'all worked hard on the budgets that you sent in and requested, but I also want to thank the budget office for all the hard work they put into this to get it to the point to where so many of you were in agreement with the final recommendations that came forward. This was a tough year, as we've said, and I really want to tell you how much I appreciate, again, all of the hard work y'all put in to get us to this point. I think this is a budget we can all be proud of, and I thank you very much for that. So with that...
Judge?
Yes, sir.
Is there any way we can go ahead and resolve the sheriff's department today rather than do it on a court day?
Well, I think we're not, I don't think we're ready to do it today. I would like to, we might see, there's probably going to be one other, when are we going to do the, we're not going to want to do it on that JPS presentation today. I think we need to spend a little bit more time instead of doing it today, but it shouldn't take very long, I'm hopeful.
Okay.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay, there being no further business, we're adjourned.